experiencing your natural and restful full consciousness. How does experience grow and change over time of your natural full consciousness? As human beings have the challenge of conditioning ego identity, returning to full consciousness is by far the first and most important step so that you become more real human being, no longer conditioned, no longer suppressed. You become your true self, especially yourself, natural self in this lifetime, as you were supposed to be, without this additional societal conditioning, additional misidentifications, and various suppressions. You regain access to the source, and you regain access to this boundless, open consciousness. And now, this is where many misconceptions may arise, because when we look at spiritual teachers, if one reads their books and watches their videos, automatically you start making some kind of idea what full consciousness is about, what enlightenment is about. For some part, it is healthy to see the possibilities of higher attainment, but at the same time, on the flip side of the coin, you start making idealizations that everything is going to be perfect, that you will be always in bliss and nothing else matters anymore. How does it happen in reality? Not in books or videos or in your idealized imagination, but how does it happen in reality? So in reality, coming to full consciousness is returning to your normal, natural self, how you are supposed to be. Being yourself, no longer reactive to fears, anxieties. This is where Buddha actually put it best, because when he was asked what meditation gave him, he replied, I lost anger, doubts, worries, confusions, fears, and so on. So this is what happens in reality. You're no longer reactive to the fears. You can come out of them easily. You're no longer reactive to anger. You don't identify it as anger. You don't hold such a strong position when arguing with somebody because of one's beliefs as such. So you become more open. You start to transcend these major conditionings. This is the very first step, we may say, of how full consciousness is experienced. And it's a great relief, because you don't have to identify anymore as a fixed position. This is how I see things, and this is how things are supposed to be. You don't have to hold any specific identity that I am a manager at work, I am a politician, or I am just a waiter in the restaurant, or this or that. This doesn't define who you really are. There's no more definition who you are as such, only because you do something for income or in your life, or because you have specific hobbies. So what we see with people, and now we have about 20 people who are in full consciousness, that first thing that happens is returning of normality, becoming normal again, really normal. no longer identified, no longer feeling bad that you either have this job or that job and so on, no longer confused of so many things that you can't do this or that, or you're not supposed to do this or that, or because you're spiritual, you shouldn't do the dishes at home anymore because you're too spiritual for that. All of these things start going away. Even if one took a very rigid spiritual approach, even disidentifying from spirituality happens as well. So you become much more normal. You start enjoying your hobbies again, even if it's something simple. Gardening, amazing. Putting your hands in the soil, loving the plants. It's beautiful. Learning to play an instrument again, dancing, going to a gym. That's also fine. Not a problem. Maybe you were too spiritual. Oh, these muscle builders. And yeah, you can go and have some exercise. Who said that you can't exercise your body? So you get over all these idealizations and confusions, and you become natural, normal again, and you naturally pick up what you enjoy, what is aligned with you. A job is a job. Sometimes you can't change it, and it's okay. You accept that, but that's not who you are. So, this is the first major sign of integration into your natural full consciousness. What happens then, it depends how much you have idealized full consciousness. Now, if you took unbalanced approach, some people go to other teachers and something happens, or they get transmissions in unbalanced ways and so forth. They realize then that they're so blocked, that their nervous system is not well. Many signs of disbalance are present. That requires healing so that you become more balanced again. Some people who have idealized too much full consciousness, they start breaking down their illusions of full consciousness because they realize that there's still life, there is still friends, there is still family, there is still job, there are still some days better or worse, and these illusions and delusions start being faced again. Well, that's ideally a process that you should be doing along the way. So, in a healthy and balanced way, when you open to full consciousness, you already worked through some stuff. You already have healed some important bits and learned how to heal. You already overcame most delusional aspects and most idealized aspects. So a healthy sanity comes back to you. A healthy sanity returns to you. And you made all the roses of all the Buddhas and Krishnas and goddesses and pictures of Ramana and so on and so on. And now a healthy sanity comes back to you. Oh, I am at full consciousness. And yeah, these are the great beings of the past. You know, Ramana is great being of the past. And well, Krishna, nobody met him in physical in this life because that was like thousands of years ago. So again, you start to regain a healthy sanity back. That's another good sign of what is a full consciousness integration. Naturalness, normality, sanity. You become a human being how it is supposed to be, isn't it? Now, this is the first most important part. And I really advise and prefer and guide people to give it some time to settle back into yourself, to return to being yourself. And to return also, now that will be a difficult part, to your family, friends, and your parents, and all the things that you might have ignored or left. on your spiritual journey if you did it in unbalanced way. So when you come back to full consciousness, everything is as it is. Family, family, friends are friends. And then you start to see better who are your real friends and who were just along the way for the short ride with you. So this healthy sanity of life returns to you. Of course, within you, you know that there is much more than that. It's not only normal life, but now you're open to so much more. You're open to greater depth. You are meeting everything so much more real, so much more present. Another healthy sign is your resistance to things reduces a lot. Well, I have spoken about this topic quite a lot in the past, and it is also in my book, Enlightened Authentic Self. These are the healthy signs of returning to full consciousness. Now, something which is newer, what happens when you keep working on yourself? How this full consciousness experienced as you continue advancing forward? So as you know, we're working on soul advancement, development of your soul and spirit, and completion of all karmas that are left. Some of the major ones you dealt with on the way, but the others were left. So now we go back and we start completing the karmas. So I will explain you now step by step what happens and how you usually experience full consciousness as you are completing the karmas. So normally we locate your soul. Where is your soul? Where is the bottom of the soul where it's still holding down the karmas at the bottom? And we find, okay, so your soul is still struggling with the karmas way down there. For some people, it becomes a big shock because they were working on higher states of consciousness and now it's all awareness and now it's all divine and all bliss. And then when we look back at the soul and the karma of the soul, it's like, oh, it is still struggling in the lower astral fields. It is still struggling in the other fields. Now, because you were focusing on the higher immersed states of consciousness, it doesn't mean that your soul became free from the troubles at the bottom. So for some people, it comes as a shock. For others, yeah, let's just do it. Let's go through it. Let's complete it. So what we find then is that as the person works through the karma at the lower Pinda regions, planetary Pinda regions, you get a sense that you returned back to something very old that has been abandoned, left. So this is what usually comes in. But you get a feeling that actually, if you look back, it's not finished. You have just moved forward, forward, forward. But now, since you reached the top, full consciousness, and when you look back at the soul and the spirit, oh, wow, it has been abandoned. It has been left. And then if some people keep the non-dual lingo and just keep focusing on awareness and so on, they will keep on ignoring their soul. They keep on ignoring that there even is karma left. Of course, if I look into it, it's clear that there is. So if a person continues in unbalanced approach, they will keep ignoring stuff, but they will keep experiencing the results of their karmas. So this is unbalanced and ignorant way to continue living. In a conscious way, which is supposed to be, isn't it? Growing in consciousness, it means you don't ignore stuff and you don't deny stuff. So in a conscious way, when you clear the lower astral regions, lower planetary regions. We may say the lower 4D. When you clear that out, and when the soul completes karma there, you feel that you have cleared something old and important. And then it starts to bring you more joy because your soul starts to rejoice. Your soul starts to be even more happy. And at that stage, people who are in full consciousness and who have cleared the lower 4D astral stuff, they feel a certain lightness energetically. They feel they have completed something important. There is certain lightness in your experience. And then if you have a bit more of a super brain like I have, then if I look back into the timelines and into the possible experiences that yes, those cycles are done. So you feel that liberation, a healthy liberation from something down there, something low. So you feel that healthy liberation. And then instantly you realize, well, if I did that, then I'm up for liberating my soul from all the karmas. Then we start focusing, okay, what's next? What is left over now in the upper 4D level, 5D? This is still under region, Pinda under related regions. One of our community members who is at full consciousness completed the planetary lower regions, which is 4D, 3D lower regions. It was like a birthday celebration. His soul rejoiced, celebrated, was such a huge overflow of happiness coming towards him. And we also checked that his soul has regained the light to become as bright as one sun of our solar system. And for him, that was something that he was tracking because a few months ago it was 65%, and now it became 100%, like one sun. The soul has cleared the shadows, cleared the sandbags and all the heaviness weighing it down, that now the soul has regained the brightness of equal to one sun. And he was super happy. And then I said, well, as you know, when your soul works through all the karma, all the way to the divine Satlok, Sachkhand, your soul will regain its brightness like 16 suns. And he says, I know, but I'm really happy with one sun right now, too. Well, of course, it is a celebration. So, what happens next? You're in full consciousness, and now you're going back to some old stuff. And when you clear that heavy old stuff, you feel joy. You feel that you've done something very needed, but you kind of really forgot about it. Because you moved on so fast forward, you really forgot what was in your hometown, we may say, back home, in your past. So the next major step happens when a person clears the upper regions of the Pinda Anda universal state. So 4D, 5D clearing of karma continues. And that is where the soul completes things with the planetary sphere, with the humanity structure, and with ascended masters, with the planetary hierarchy who are assisting the souls. So the ascended masters give their blessings, and now they say, you have done all your work down here, and you have completed all the soul karmas, and we bless you, and may your soul move forward gracefully upwards and upwards. Ascended masters work at multiple levels. They work at the planetary level, They work at the solar system level, at our local quadrant, which the headquarters is in the Pleiades. They work at the galactic level, which of course is the central of the Milky Way, and so on. So they work at multiple levels, and they are happy to see that your soul is done, completed everything with the planetary region. So this becomes more uplifting and elevating experience, even though you are open to full consciousness, but everything is still here, by the way. Now you are no longer separate from anything. Now you're no longer resisting anything. Yes, there is still the world, but you are the world. Yes, there is still others, but you are the others. At the same time, what you feel is these completions of cycles. So when you complete the upper portion of the Pinda Anda regions, you feel even larger sense of completedness. Your attention reaches much further now because full consciousness is beyond attention. You are in the consciousness, but your attention now becomes secondary and your attention expands more and more and more that you are aware of these completions. You are so much more aware of all the cycles of existence, of all the laws of nature, because your soul has cleared its karma. It has done the job. So you become gifted with more insights. That is depending on your degree of advancement. But I usually explain more to people what happens as they go through this. And from my perspective, I can see the activities of ascended masters, how vast attention they have. I use word attention. Of course, they're all in full consciousness, but how vast attention they have. Their attention is like multiple streams and multiple arms stretching all over the cosmos, and they're aware of all the events and activities. So your attention expands vastly. You may receive a lot more knowledge, wisdom, a lot more connection with everything in an energetic sense too. Now, the soul proceeds further to clear the karma in the local galactic solar systems and local galactic cluster. That's where then it finishes everything with the Pinda region. And when the soul finishes everything with the Pinda region, you start getting a more cosmic sense. You become truly a cosmic being, no longer just being. Yes, I am present, I'm the being. But when your soul actually clears all the karma to that beingness, because your vehicle of consciousness is here of the beingness, but now when the karma clears, you become a truly cosmic being. Some people experience it more, some people experience it less, but there is this vastness within you. So when you are in your full consciousness, energetically within you, you also can experience this huge vastness. And this is where now we reach more advanced states of soul advancement, because this is where yogis attain certain mastery. I will give a specific example. There is one yogi or teacher in a jnana yoga tradition, and his explanation of full consciousness would be that it's great peace. Nothing is lacking. It's all okay as it is. And he speaks from this perspective because he is open to full consciousness and his soul has completed the karma into the voidness. We call it the lower void. It's at the level of non-duality. So his soul is abiding there. He is open to full consciousness. His soul is abiding in that voidness. And what is in the voidness? Great peace. It's all fine. There is nothing really, nothing to worry about, nothing as such. So that is his experience in full consciousness. Now, those yogis, people who open and complete karma further above into Brahma Jyoti, like Papaji or Nisargadatta Maharaj, they suddenly start bursting with light. Yes, they're in full consciousness and their soul is abiding in this huge light of Brahma Jyoti. And what they speak of is it's all consciousness, it's all light. They don't speak the language of the other yogi I mentioned who is in full consciousness, but his soul is in the void and he says, oh, it's so peaceful. No, the other yogis say, oh, this is just blast of light. This is what is. So their language now is different because they experience the full consciousness differently because their soul is there. Now, do you start getting the idea of what I'm saying? Full consciousness is one thing, but your experience is primarily of your completions of karma. So once you reach the Brahmanda stage of completion of karma, your soul may be in the voidness. It's peace. Everything is so okay. Everything is so restful. When your soul fully moves into the Brahma Jyoti, or there are 5 major Brahmanda regions. So in the 4th region of Brahmanda, there is the cosmic avatar. So that's where then, if that soul stays there, they will say, I am the avatar. And they probably would identify, I am Shiva, I'm this and that, whatever deity they're aligned with. They would identify that now I am the avatar of this deity because I really can experience that. And they do experience that. They're kind of representatives because their soul is fully abiding in the field of that deity. So they now see themselves as consciousness and avatar, or in alignment with that deity. So the experience of full consciousness can vary so much in so many ways. The experience itself is essentially by where your soul is. Because as time goes by, especially when you settle in, so let's say you open to full consciousness and your soul has reached that voidness. You settle into it. And since that yogi is not working on his soul anymore, but he keeps seeing the voidness, he loves it. Of course, it's beautiful. So all of his experience is that right now. Of course, for disciples and students, you keep on working. So your experience keeps on changing. But let's say if you reach full consciousness and you stop, and your soul is still, let's say, in the planetary wisdom region or philosophical region. So what will happen is that in the next 2, 3, 5 years, you will start focusing more on the wisdom aspect, on the philosophical aspect. And there are some teachers who are, well, for example, Jiddu Krishnamurti. Just recently, I looked much more in detail about him, and his consciousness is open to awareness, and his soul is abiding in the planetary world teacher wisdom plane. Therefore, this is why there was a bit of confusion in his life because the Theosophical Society members saw his soul, that his soul is abiding in the world teacher of the planetary region. But what they didn't realize that that region is not the real world teacher. His soul is mirrored. You see, it's the lower version of the world teacher because above there are mirrors. Then there is a teacher of the planetary system, solar system, and galactic and all and all and all. The real world teacher is not here. The real world teacher is way, way, way. His soul is way up there. But whoever read his soul, they misinterpreted basically. They misinterpreted this young boy in the streets of India that he's the new world teacher. So they picked him up and they groomed him as a world teacher. But, on a beautiful side, that he was at the planetary region and his soul was there. So basically, he could comprehend what a world teacher is supposed to be. So he developed a very philosophical, spiritual approach to explaining civilization and the cycles of humanity's development, very philosophical stuff. You can see that it's very spiritual philosophy. It's not a real world teacher who has the power, the actual throne of the world teacher. So this is what happens, that basically as time goes by, when your soul abides in a certain region, that becomes your experience. So you're open to full consciousness and you have access to this openness, to this vastness. And of course, when you are working on it, you may experience what it truly is, the great bliss, the great light beyond all, the true nature of the full consciousness. But then what settles in over time is where your soul is. Now, to make it even more complex, is that the present. Now, this usually happens in terms of gurus, the Indian gurus, because their soul really gets to that point. But now the complexity comes in with the Western gurus, because if I look at the soul of these famous teachers of non-duality and the tradition of Ramana and so on, their soul is actually still at the very bottom of the lower 4D, or best case, at the upper 4D, rarely in 5D. Their soul is there. But what happens, since they have worked with their guru, their teacher, they got a certain activation. So what happens is that usually their throat chakra, their third eye, or their crown is opened to that higher region. For example, Brahma Jyoti, awareness. So in case of the most famous awareness teacher, you probably know his name, his soul and karma is in the lower 4D region, or somewhere in 4D. I haven't checked precisely, but very briefly, even now, I can see that his soul is there. But what happens is that he has opened to full consciousness, his soul is there. And then there is a shift or a certain alteration that one of his chakras is beaming into the Brahma Jyoti. One of his chakras is fixed into Brahma Jyoti. So that's why what he experiences on one level is awareness, but on the other level, his soul is still down there. And that creates a very interesting dynamic in the way he teaches, in the way he experiences his personal life, not what he teaches in public and how he speaks about awareness, but in his personal life. There are cycles, experiences, all that stuff. What the soul usually experiences at that level. What he teaches is one of his chakras fixed into the awareness, Brahma Jyoti region. And yes, he has opening to the full consciousness. Now, this comes to a greater realization for all of you that your experience is determined by your vehicles of consciousness. Your experience is defined by the purity, the karma cleansing, and certain alterations or fixations or openings of your vehicles of consciousness. Now we may begin to understand the big picture that our dear Ramana Maharishi was experiencing the self in that way because his soul was up here and he was fully immersed into that. So that's why he was teaching about the self in that way. When we look at Papaji, we see that his soul is somewhere here. He sees the light in this way. So for him, the self is this thing. This is how he sees the self. So that's why he uses a different language. That's why he has different practices. That's why he attracts different people. And that's why he helps in different way. If we look at Nisargadatta Maharaj, we see that he took even different approach than Papaji, and he had a lot of words of explaining things in a very, let's say, blunt way. That's the right word, blunt. That's the quality of his teaching. So when we look at his vehicles of consciousness, we see, oh, okay, well, his soul is here and this and this. Oh, okay, now it makes sense why he sees the self or consciousness in this way and why he uses his language in a very blunt way. And of course, his books have been re-edited like 30 times probably. You can see in the editing notes, wrap them around and polish them up. But I'm sure if you would have met him, he would be like an axe or a hammer and just like bluntly say you something like, where did that come from? Very, very rough way of teaching, we may say, but still high consciousness, still some good hardcore truth. That's, we may say, his style. So, how you experience full consciousness, in summary, greatly depends on where your soul is. And then there are possible alterations of your chakras and fixation of your attention to perceive something higher above or be fixated on something higher above. But that is temporary, of course. So that's what constitutes the experience of full consciousness. It's highly complex, but at the end of the day, we can have a much clearer picture of all spiritual teachers, of all orders of spiritual teachers. And then we look at people who are students, disciples, and so on. They open to these amazing high states of consciousness, but the soul karma still has to be worked out, or otherwise certain things will still keep coming back in your experience. Over time, as your soul develops, advances, you may experience, even if you are not on a teacher track or an empowered mastery track, you may experience, as your soul gets liberated, these greater freedoms, these greater completions, and that you're no longer subject to those cycles of experiences. That now there is greater sense of freedom and completion, and all that stuff is worked through because you did work through it. And therefore, you may become a very blissful, very loving gardener, an extremely creative, genius, fully conscious chef. You may pursue any interest you have. You may live your beautiful, ordinary life with infused sense of divinity, with a sense that your soul has completed all of it. Your life is simple. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to get into many complications. You don't have to do what you don't need to do. And therefore, you experience in experience where your soul primarily is. If you do meditate on higher states of consciousness, you have access to it. If we sit back for meditation and focus on the higher states, that's accessible. It's not difficult at all. But my everyday life experience is mostly where the soul is. So this is what creates the overall balance of how you experience things in full consciousness.